You're looking at one of the greatest drag racing survivors of all time. This is a 1960 Pontiac Catalina, and it is a multi-time race winner. It's a national record holder, and it's pretty much untouched from when it stopped racing in 1971, and it is a complete time capsule. It's 100% authentic, and we're going to talk to the owner. We're going to learn a lot more about its history, and we're going to check out all the details that make this thing super special, including the fact that it's still operational. It still runs, it still drives. You got to check this thing out. It's one of the best I've ever seen. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and feel free to leave a comment down below. I've also got merchandise like these t-shirts. I've got stickers, coffee mugs, some other random stuff. Be sure to check that out as well. This car was built by John Eliezer of Old Bridge, New Jersey. So the thing that really grabs your attention on this car right off the bat is the silver metal flake paint job and the words Roadrunner on the side of it. Now you got to rewind the clock a little bit. Plymouth had not come out with the Roadrunner yet when this car was painted. This car, to our knowledge, was painted in 1965 by Tinsley's Auto Body in Bellport, New York, and the lettering was done by a local sign painter. And how he got that name was because he was constantly running the roads. He was going from track to track to track. If there was a track open on Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday, he'd go to all three of them. And as you can see, this car won a lot. And you know, he raced in a pretty competitive part of the country when it came to stock eliminator. He was racing in New York and New Jersey, and that region of the country was full of junior stock eliminator cars. Cars that, like station wagons and sedan deliveries and four-door sedans, big heavy cars, you know, those classes were highly competitive. You'll see on the front fender it says mechanic work by Ralph's Garage. Well, Ralph and John are brothers, and they really put their heads together to make this car run and perform like it did. This was a national record holder in UHRA, which was a sanctioning body for National Speedway in New York. This car ran a 1340 in 1971, and that doesn't sound all that fast, but when you look at the regulations and the rules for these stock eliminator cars, that thing was flying. This is a big, heavy car, and it had some modifications, obviously, to be able to go that fast, but it was all factory type components on this car. Under the hood, it's got a 1960 model 389, which was original type engine for this car. It's bored 30 over, and it's got a set of 421 Super Duty cylinder heads on it and a Super Duty aluminum 2.4 intake manifold on it. But that's not actually what they started with. They actually started with a much simpler induction system, then stepped up to a tri-power system, and then finally went to the 2.4 system later in the 60s and early 70s. So you'll notice on this record holder certificate, it says it ran a 1420 in G stock automatic trim, and that was in September of 1970. Well, the next one that we see from the United Hot Rod Association, it says John Eliezer, August of 1971, and the car ran a 1340, almost a full second difference in just about a year's time. Still running in the same class, G stock automatic, but I'm thinking that this is probably when the induction system changed from the tri-power setup to the 2.4s, because that was a huge gain. That's definitely interesting to see that big of an improvement in just a year's time in such a strict class as the stock eliminator category. The car's got a turbo hydromatic 4-speed transmission in it, 411 gears out back. It's got old school traction bars, and it even has airbags in the coil springs to keep it from transferring too much weight onto the rear end. That kind of stiffened things up a little bit so that the car would launch and hook off of the line. And pretty much the only thing that's been replaced on this car, as you can see, front to back, this thing is original, but those rear tires, those are modern Hoosier slicks on the back of this thing. And that's because the new owner, Tim Truax, has actually raced this car. If you can believe that, this car is absolutely functional. You can turn the key and go drag race this car right now. And if you look inside, this car is perfectly preserved. The old floor mat, the upholstery, everything is just perfect. It does have an aftermarket steering wheel in it, and then you can see this 8,000 RPM tach. It still works. It's still there. This is just 100% original stuff from the 1960s. And you'll notice that it doesn't have a roll bar in it. It didn't need it. It wasn't that fast of a car. And a lot of these stock Eliminator cars, I mean, they were required to continue having stock interior, stock glass. They weren't allowed to replace it with Lexan or plexiglass or anything like that. These cars had to appear to be stock. And you can see on the door jamb here that this car was a street car for a little while. John bought this car new in 1960 and drove it on the street a little bit. You can see the oil change stickers here on the door jamb. Can't really see any dates or any real specific information there, but it's proof that this thing, it was just a street car for a while and then started a whole new life around 1964. And just so many cool details, including these wheels and tires. These are the original wheels. Now they have been painted silver. They were originally chrome, but just so much cool stuff that's still surviving on this thing. And then just looking through the album that Tim has on this thing, so many pieces of this car's history, including Tinsley's Auto Painting, Ralph's Garage, just these business cards. These things have survived all these years and they were in this car. And this scrapbook is just so cool. It has so many neat pieces like this New York National Speedway pit pass and handwritten time slips from Lebanon Valley Dragway and New York National Speedway. You'll see there it's running in the low 14s and it's running in the I stock automatic class, and then it looks like J automatic. I'm assuming that's a J stock automatic class, but just some really cool pieces of this car's history. Then we've got Dover Drag Strip, Englishtown, you've got Madison Township Raceway Park. All of these little pieces were inside of this car. And then they were able to find some pictures, including this great picture that shows another 1960 Pontiac that was the tow car for this 1960 Pontiac race car. And speaking of being flat towed, that was some other parts that came with this car. The original tow bar came with it, and the hubs. It had freewheeling hubs to put on the back of it so that it wouldn't be, spinning the rear end and all the drivetrain and all that kind of stuff. It was a pretty popular addition back in the day, and this car had them, and it still has them. He's still got those hubs from way back in the 1960s. Also in the trunk were a collection of rule books. These included NHRA, AHRA, and UHRA sanctioning bodies. All had different rules packages, and he was really studying this stuff to try to stay on top of the rules because they change from year to year as far as the weight breaks, the class designations, all that kind of stuff was something that was just kind of on a sliding scale. So he was really up on all of this. And you'll also see that he's got this Pontiac engine book, and he said that this was kind of his guide to making that Pontiac 389 perform as well as it did. Another interesting detail is this car is still wearing its original license plates. And check out this really cool clipping from a local newspaper that did an article on Ralph and John and their drag racing program back in the day. This is a really cool piece that just adds to the history of this car. Pontiac magazine called Smoke Signals did a huge article on this car, did a beautiful photo shoot on it, showed all of the old school pictures, all the old information that you could ever want. They did several pages, I think about 10 pages as far as the feature is concerned, and did a great job on it. So many great details in here, and it just really does this car justice. I mean, this is a significant car that went completely hidden for lots of years, decades. This car completely just sat and nobody knew about it from 1972 until about 2011. So just an incredible car with a great history, and now Tim is able to tell this car's history, and he loves telling its history. So it has really fallen into some good hands. Now Tim did let me know that he's not going to keep this car forever. It's not something that he's just dying to sell. He loves this thing. He loves the history behind it. He loves the fact that he's been able to put some of these pieces together. But the car is available. So I'm going to put my email address in the description below. If you have an interest in buying this car, email me and I'll put you in contact with Tim. He's a great guy to talk to. He can tell you all about this thing. And, you know, he's not asking a fortune for it. I'm not going to put his price out there, but it is an affordable car for what you're getting. This is a completely amazing Survivor. And even though he has no personal connection to this car's history as far as seeing it run back in the day or knowing the owner or anything like that, he has become a student of this car's history, and he was able to track down John Eliezer, and he was able to meet him at the Pontiac Oakland Convention in Connecticut, and it just really kind of sealed the deal on the history of this car. Not only was he able to get more information from John, but he was also able to get the original Roadrunner jacket. And you'll see John here pictured wearing the jacket and sitting behind the wheel of the car that he raced for so many years. And, you know, that had to bring back some great memories for John. Just being able to talk about this car, being able to kind of rehash some of those memories and tell those stories and look back on what was really a very, very interesting life. John was a Native American, and he was born on a reservation right outside of New York City. And he had kind of a rough upbringing, but he made up for it. He went to college, he joined the U.S. Air Force and served in the Korean War. He was a tail gunner on a B-36 bomber, and he ultimately ended up in the aerospace industry as an aerospace mechanical designer. He actually designed some of the pieces that were used on the Apollo 13 lunar module. You know, he had pretty wide range of interests, including drag racing, obviously, with this car. And, you know, just a really cool guy that lived a pretty awesome life. And unfortunately, he died just a few weeks shy of his 90th birthday. But he was able to go see his old race car. He was able to go talk with Tim, give him the full scoop on this thing, because he was still sharp, still had all of that knowledge, all of those memories stuck in his head. And, you know, it was just a really great experience for Tim to get to spend some time with him and learn more about this car and learn more about the man who built it. While Tim was at the convention, he also got to meet Tinsley, the guy who's responsible for painting this car so many years ago. And reportedly, it's got 35 coats of lacquer on this thing, sanded between each coat and then polished to a high gloss at the very end stage. And it's still shining to this day. Now, it's not quite as shiny as it used to be, but it's still looking really good after all these years. We've covered a lot of elements on this historic drag car, but now I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to show us even more and then show us what's hiding in the trunk of this thing. So you don't want to miss that. And then at the end of all that, we're going to show you a couple clips of this car running, including an exhibition pass, just an 1/8 mile little fun run at Ohio Valley. You got to stick around and watch this thing in action.
Original owner was a gentleman named John Eliezer. Bought the car 1960, brand new. Said he bought it from a store in New York City. I've never heard of that. Supposedly it was a thing. He bought the car. It was basically his transportation. It was his first car. He drove it for 4 years as a regular car. Started dabbling in drag racing. As he got more into drag racing, he bought another car, a 1960 Catalina, and he used that as his driver and his pull car, and then he made this his strictly race car only. From that point on, he started doing things to the engine. He painted the car, got all the lettering done. From what they told me, the reason the car is named the Roadrunner, because it was before the Plymouth of that name. He would take off from work on Friday afternoon, go to one racetrack, race that night, leave, go to the next track on Saturday, leave there and go to the next track on Sunday. And sometimes just drove from one track to the other, slept in the car. So they said, you're just running the road up. So he became the road runner. He was actually, his Native American name was Running Deer, so it was close. He was fairly serious. If you get around the car, you'll see there are stickers from 1964 all the way up through 71 where he did his racing and had those wins. And he's got every winner sticker I think he got, he put on the car to indicate that. I mean, the car, you can't call it original, but except for the paint and the updates to the motor, the rest of the car is pretty much the original car. All the trim, you know, all the stainless steel, everything on the car was original to the car. That's one reason I liked it so much, is because it still looked like the car originally did, other than the paint job. It's a 1960 block. It's a 389 with 4-bolt mains. John had it bored out, I think 30 over. He has put in, I don't know the brand names of, you know, rods and pistons and all that, but he put in the best he could. It's got 421 Pontiac Super Duty heads on it and 421 Pontiac Super Duty intake manifold. Those things basically were race parts that he acquired at some point, and this was his final iteration of the motor. At one point he had 3 deuces or 3 2-barrels on it, and this was, I think, the one that pushed him over the record.
Very cool. I like all the vintage parts, the cool can and the...
You know, that cool can, you can find them that still look like that, but I can't find one that's got, it's got 2 lines.
Oh,
it's got 2 lines,
yeah, one for each carburetor.
And every cool can I can find is 1 line.
The tin foil on the fuel line, another old racer trick.
Yeah, trying to keep that now. You can see I had to replace some of the tin foil that was missing, but there's the original tin foil that he had on there in 1971 over there. And I actually, when we get in the trunk, I can show you the package, the Reynolds wrap that came with the car.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The headers, he said you couldn't buy headers for this car, so he bought a set that fit the engine, and then you'll see places where he cut and welded and made them fit so they would clear the oil filter and all that. I got with it. These are all carburetor jets, ignition parts, the spark plug wires that I've got pictures of the car with those. There's his, that's what he used to write his numbers.
Wow. On
the windshield. Cans of oil, spare parts. I mean, it's incredible what I got. Let's see, this is always everybody's favorite. This is one of them. This is his silver paint and his glitter that he used to do touch-ups if something happened on the track. This came with the car. That's his aluminum foil.
That's pretty amazing. It's amazing how complete this thing is in general, as far as just the car itself, but all of these
that's
pieces.
The white paint that the brake drums are painted with.
Wow.
And then you notice the back rims are orange and black, and that's the paint from that, and that came with it. And it's really cool. Look at that, 59 cents. It's got to be 1960.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. Got car wax. All that was original stuff. Mr. Tinsley and John both told me he has 35, 37 coats of clear at one point.
Yeah.
A lot of that's gone now. Plus whatever thickness the metal plate is.
Yeah, it took a lot of lacquer clear coat to cover that.
Yeah, and just they hand sanded and polished every layer.
Wow. So you said you talked to this
Mr. Tinsley?
Yeah.
He's still alive.
Wow.
In fact, I took this to an AACA car show this summer in June, and the car got its what do you call it? First Preservation Award. So I got a huge award.
Cool.
And it's also the thing on the front where AOCA has certified that it was an actual race car. I had your documentation.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good little nugget.
I don't know a lot about these things, but I'm learning as I go.
And the jacket didn't come with the car. That John
sent that to me because I asked John. I said, "Do you have trophies or anything that I can put with the car? Because I want to show your car off."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I've given away or sold all my trophies." He said, "But I still have my original race team jacket." And he sent that.
Man.
And then if you turn around the other side.
Oh. Yeah, it doesn't get much cooler than that.
No, I mean, I got chills. I get chills right now. It's crazy. Whew.
Stay tuned for more videos on old school drag cars, old hot rods with history, and some of my own personal projects here in the shop.